So part 2 of the test is covering mostly what our essential question talks about, whether the Industrial Revolution was beneficial or detrimental. Another way of looking at it would be the short-term effects and the long-term effects. Okay, so what we're talking about here is going to be, how did the Industrial Revolution affect society? The short-term effects. We have positive short-term effects, and then we have negative short-term effects. The positive short-term effects, and let's split it up into like a T-chart. So we have positive and negative short-term effects. And this is short-term. Okay, so the positive effects. First of all, by industrializing, you have faster production, and that leads to more products, more goods. Things are cheaper. There we go. Faster production equals more goods, things are cheaper. In addition, because you have faster production, you can have more jobs. These jobs, originally before the Industrial Revolution, most commoners were going to be farmers. And as farmers, they would work for their crops, or they might work for some, if they're living on the land of the owner, they would work for rent, and they would work for food. So they would either get the crops, the rent, or the food. They did not get cash. Once the Industrial Revolution started, now workers could get cash wages. Okay. So if you have cash wages, you would spend some of it on your rent and your food and taking care of your family, but you might be able to save some of it. And then that savings could actually improve your life. You could buy more of these new goods that are coming out. You could send your children to school, etc. This improves the general daily lifestyle. In addition, one of the other short-term positive effects, as we talked about with the enclosures, there's going to be an increase in agricultural product, which means that people's general diet improves. There's more food. The population increases. And there's better diets. Okay, so these are generally the short-term positive effects. More money, more jobs, more food. The negative effects. So originally the short-term effects, there's less handmade goods. What that means is the quality of goods goes down. When people made things by hand, they took a lot of care, there was a lot of delicate, complex work, and each piece was one of a kind. But now, if you're going to do everything by machine, the quality goes down a little bit. It's not to say that it's terrible, it's decent quality, but the quality goes down. It's not going to be an original piece, it's not going to be specially made. So handmade goods goes down. In addition, pollution increases. Now that you have the factories, they're either burning coal or they're using the rivers. As you saw in the video, they would dam up the river, which means that the fish couldn't come upstream, which means that people weren't going to get all of the food that they were used to. They now had to buy their food instead of going fishing for themselves. The pollution is also the, when you would have a cloth, you would need to wash it and dye it. The dye and the washing, the refuse of that washing would go right back into the river. So people started getting sick. Pollution goes up, people get more sick. Okay, due to the pollution. So you have less handmade goods, pollution increases. In addition, as we talked about, people were going to be going into the cities to get more jobs, which means the cities get overcrowded. Okay. And again, when there's a lot of people in the city, so much is growing in the cities that they're not ready with sanitation codes, they're not ready with the roads that they're building, so things get a little bit dangerous. You have unhealthy cities. You have the sewers are backed up, overcrowded apartments, and that leads to people all getting sick. Okay, so these are the short-term positive effects and the short-term negative effects. Now let's talk long-term. Oh, I forgot one of the short-term negative effects. My bad. So still short-term, we'll start to add that. Short-term effects, one of the negative effects are dangerous working conditions. As you saw in the video, when the women were working, there was first the bobbin girl, the little girl gets stuck in the machine. A number of child laborers would get hurt. They might get their fingers cut off. They could even get so badly injured that their arm or leg would get caught mangled and either would have to be amputated or they would be deformed for the rest of their lives. So those were dangerous working conditions. As well as adults. As you saw in the video, the woman gets her arm caught, and when her arm got caught, she probably lost a lot of blood because they couldn't get her to the hospital very quickly. She would either have lost her arm or she would have died. The problem with that is that companies didn't take care of people who were hurt on the job. If a person got hurt on the job, they just lost their job. They could no longer work because they're missing an arm or they're missing a leg. The company is not responsible for that. And that person would either end up in the poorhouse, kind of starving, or they would have died just because they can't ever get another job. So it's very, very difficult, very, very dangerous working conditions. That's another short term. Now let's talk about long term. The long term, in general, everybody's life improves. You have not only the lower class, but the upper and the middle class all improve their lives. Although generally the lower class had dangerous working conditions, terrible living conditions, and they would be getting sick, in the long run, actually everything got better. First, the cities improve. They increase their police officers, they improve the sanitation, they widen roads to, first of all, to increase trade, but also to make things a lot safer at night for people. So the cities improve. Because the cities improve, especially the sanitation, less people get sick. People get sick less since there's better sanitation, but they also improve their diets. Remember we talked about how the agricultural revolution has more food. And at first everybody's diets improve, but over a long period of time, Improved diets not only means better health, it means taller, stronger people. So evolutionary wise, the people just get better. The cities improve, we talked about sanitation codes, wider roads, more police to avoid crime in an overcrowded city. Okay. In addition to the cities improving, the working conditions improve. And we're going to learn a little bit more about this a little bit later. But generally, what happens is that laws force owners to be safer and work less hours. As you saw in the video, the women got together and they basically went on strike. By going on strike, they stopped the mill from working, and so the owners need the girls to come back in to work. As an agreement, they promised to pay a better piece rate, meaning they would improve their wages, and they lessened the workday by a certain amount of time. Eventually we get to minimum work day. So instead of working 16 hours a day, maybe people would work 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. So the laws are forced on the owners to improve working conditions, and therefore less people are dying, more people are getting paid more. The long-term negative effects we're still facing today. Two of them. Number one, global inequality. Okay, so poorer countries. The United States is possibly the richest country in the world. In general, people are immigrating or emigrating to the United States in order to get a better life. This is people from China, people from Latin America, people from Africa are all coming to the United States to improve their conditions. The countries they're leaving, Latin American countries, China, Africa, the different African countries, Africa is not a country, the different African countries, these countries are either at war, they have corrupt governments, or their economy is so low because unlike the United States, they do not have the same industrialization. The United States is number one in information technology. It's in the top 10 of medical science. And these are all showing that we have a very good way of life, that we're industrialized, that we're making a lot of money. The countries that people are immigrating from, they probably don't have as much industry. They don't have the same kind of opportunities for people who graduate from college. They don't have as good health care. This is the same even now. If you look on the news, any of those third world countries that are struggling, people are poor. They don't have as good housing. They might be getting sick because of bad sanitation. It still exists today, and that's a very huge long term. The other long-term negative is the environment. Okay. So while the United States and other first world countries, industrialized countries, are trying to improve the environment, in general, the environment still suffers generally because of the Industrial Revolution and its continued progress. So even now, instead of having railroads that cloud up the sky with black smoke, we have cars that are using up fossil fuels. We have beaches and oceans that we can't go into the water all the time because there's chemicals being dumped into it. This is generally the same. It's a long term, hundreds of years later, we're still suffering from the Industrial Revolution's practices.